Virgo, before I tell you what is meant to be, I want to say something about the word celebrate and what I mean when I ask you to get ready for it, because celebrate is a word that can feel premature when what is being celebrated has not yet fully arrived, and that can feel forced. When it is prescribed from outside rather than arising from inside, from the natural overflow of something genuinely worth celebrating. Having arrived, I am not asking you to celebrate prematurely or to force a feeling of festivity that has not yet been earned by the arrival of something real. I am asking you to prepare to be ready for the feeling when what is meant to be finally arrives in the form it has been building toward. Because what is coming is real and it is building toward the kind of arrival that genuinely produces celebration without the forcing or the prematurity of someone celebrating something that is not yet what they are celebrating it as. Welcome, and let me tell you what is meant to be, and why it is arriving now, and what the crown in the title is pointing toward about who you are and what you are becoming in this specific season of your story. Something is meant to be. I want to use those words carefully because meant to be is a phrase that gets used in ways that sometimes strip it of its real meaning or that use it as a convenient explanation for things that are not actually fated or ordained or part of the specific design of a life that has a direction to it and a destination that the direction has been pointing toward from the beginning. When I say something is meant to be, I mean something specific. I mean that the thing I am describing is the natural and inevitable arrival point of the specific trajectory your life has been on, combined with the specific investments you have made and the specific version of yourself you have been becoming over the period that preceded this one, and that the combination of all of those things points to this in this season as the natural and earned and proportionate result of everything that preceded it. Not fate in the passive sense, but fate in the active sense, the fate that you made through the specific choices and investments and the becoming that this period required of you and that you delivered in whatever specific form the delivering took in your specific situation and your specific life. That is what is meant to be the naturally arrived at destination of the path you chose to take and the person you chose to become on the way to getting here. I want to describe what is arriving in the specific terms I can see from here because specificity is the difference between a message that feels good to hear and a message that actually lands in the real dimensions of your life and changes something in how you see what is happening and what is about to happen. What is arriving is a period of recognition, not the casual recognition of someone being acknowledged in the ordinary social form. That produces a moment of good feeling before the ordinary texture of life resumes, without the recognition having changed anything fundamental about how you are seen or what you have access to or what is available to you because of being seen correctly. The specific recognition that produces celebration, the kind that changes something in the configuration of your circumstances in a way that is lasting, and that produces new possibilities where there were not the same possibilities before, because the recognition opens doors that were previously closed to someone at your level, as the level was previously understood by the people who were doing the understanding. The recognition is arriving because of something that I want to name specifically, because I think you deserve to understand what is producing it, rather than receiving it as something that simply happened, without the context that would make its arrival meaningful in the specific way it is meaningful. For someone who understands what produced it, the recognition is arriving because you have been doing the work in the full and unglamorous form of someone who shows up consistently at the standard they set for themselves, which is higher than what anyone around them requires, but that they maintain anyway because it is their standard and not negotiable, regardless of whether the standard is being noticed or rewarded or appreciated in the immediate term by the people who are in a position to notice and reward and appreciate that showing up at the non-negotiable standard, regardless of external recognition, has been building something in the invisible dimension of your life that is now becoming visible in the form of the recognition that is arriving as the natural result of sustained and genuine effort finally being seen by people who are in a position to do something about what they are seeing. Whew. I want to dwell here for a moment because I think this is the most important thing I will say in this entire message, and the thing that most deserves to be heard before we arrive at the celebration and the crown and everything that is meant to be. You kept the standard when keeping the standard was not being rewarded. That specific choice made repeatedly over the period of the preceding season, in the ordinary and unglamorous moments where the choice was available and keeping the standard was more demanding than lowering it would have been. And the evidence for lowering it was the absence of anyone noticing or rewarding or acknowledging the difference between the standard you were keeping and the standard that would have been acceptable to everyone around you. You kept it anyway for yourself because of who you are and what you hold yourself to, regardless of what the external evidence was or was not providing in the way of justification for the continued keeping. That choice is what the recognition arriving now is, recognizing not the performance of the standard, but the actual standard maintained consistently in the absence of external reward, which is the only form of the standard. That is actually the standard rather than a performance of it for the benefit of whoever was watching and providing the reward that justified the maintaining. The recognition is seeing the real thing, because the real thing has been there to be seen all along, consistently, regardless of who was watching or whether anyone was watching at all. Because it is in the title and it is doing something specific there that I want to honor with explanation, rather than leaving it as decorative. The crown is not about royalty in the literal sense. It is about sovereignty, the specific kind of sovereignty that belongs to someone who has arrived at a full and unambiguous ownership of who they are and what they stand for and what they deserve and what they will and will not accept from the people and situations that occupy their life and claim their time and energy and attention. The crown is what you wear when you are fully sovereign over your own life and your own story, without apology, without the constant seeking of permission from external sources to be who you already are and to take up the space that who you already are has always deserved to take up. You are arriving at that sovereignty in this season through the combination of everything the preceding season required and delivered in the form of a version of yourself that is more fully and unapologetically you than the version that entered the preceding season before what the season required was produced in you by the specific process of having been through what you have been through and still being here in the form of yourself rather than in the diminished form that some seasons produce when they have their full effect on a person who does not have the particular resilience that you apparently have. I want to speak now about the celebration itself and what it looks like when it is the genuine kind rather than the performed kind, because there is a difference. And I want you to have the genuine kind when what is meant to be arrives in its full form in this season. The genuine celebration looks like presence, the full and complete presence of someone who is actually in the moment of the thing they are celebrating rather than in the observation of the moment. From a slight distance, that keeps the full impact of the moment from landing completely in the person who is in it. The genuine celebration looks like receiving rather than deflecting the full weight of what has arrived into something more manageable or more proportionate to the expectation that was held going in, rather than to the actual size of what arrived, which may be larger than the expectation prepared for. And the genuine celebration looks like gratitude, the specific and honest gratitude of someone who knows what it took to arrive at the thing they are grateful for, and who receives it with the full acknowledgement of what the arriving cost and what it therefore means that it is here, finally, in the form it has been building toward through everything that was required to produce it. Whew. I want to say something about the moment itself. The specific moment when what is meant to be finally arrives in the form that allows you to recognize it as the thing this message was describing. That moment will feel like a recognition of something rather than an introduction to something new. Because what is meant to be when it arrives does not feel entirely unfamiliar, even when it is arriving for the first time. In its full and complete form, it will feel like, oh, this is what was coming, rather than I had no idea something like this was possible. Because some part of you has always known that something like this was available to you in the specific form it is about to arrive in, even when the knowing was quiet and not always audible, above the noise of the preceding seasons that were producing the conditions for the arrival of this one. When it arrives, trust the recognition, the specific feeling of, oh, this is the most reliable signal available that what has arrived is what was always meant to arrive for you in this season when you were ready. By doing these three things in the period between now and the arrival of what is meant to be, the first thing, let yourself feel what you feel about what has been building without managing the feeling into something more sustainable or more appropriate or less vulnerable than what you actually feel. When you let yourself feel it fully, the hope that something real is arriving is a vulnerable feeling, because hope contains the possibility of disappointment in a form that is proportionate to the size of the hope, and most people manage their hope downward to limit the potential disappointment rather than allowing the full hope that is actually present and that the arriving of what is coming deserves to be received by. Let the full hope be present in the period before the arrival, because the full hope is what opens the space for the full receiving when what is coming arrives. The second thing, acknowledge what you have done to get here, not in the self-congratulatory form of someone who is cataloging their own achievements for the benefit of whoever is listening, but in the honest and private form of someone who takes a moment to recognize in the specific and detailed way what was required of them in the preceding period that produced the version of them who is now in this season arriving at what is meant to be. The acknowledgement matters, not because you need external validation, but because the internal acknowledgement of what you have actually done is part of what the celebration requires, to be genuinely celebratory rather than simply good news arriving, without the context of what produced it being fully understood by the person receiving it. You did the work. Take a moment before the celebration arrives to simply know that in whatever private and honest way, the knowing arrives for you specifically. And the third thing, make space for what is coming. In whatever practical and concrete form, making space is possible for you right now in your actual life as it is configured currently. What is meant to be requires room, not theoretical room, actual room, in the daily texture of your life, in the practical dimensions of what you spend your time and energy on, and whether there is enough available of both of those things for what is coming to be fully received and held without being crowded by what is currently occupying the space that what is coming needs to inhabit. Clear some space in whatever way is available and appropriate for your specific situation, and let the clearing be itself a form of preparation and expectation and celebration of what has not yet arrived, but that is coming in this season as what was always meant to be. For you, something is meant to be, and it is arriving now in this season after the preceding season did what preceding seasons are for, which is to build the version of the person that what is meant to be requires to receive it in the fullest possible form. You are that version. Now, in this season, for the first time, in the complete form of someone who has been built by everything the building required and who is now ready for the thing that the building was producing. I want to say something now about what you are allowed to feel in response to what is arriving, because I think this matters more than anything else I could say. In the closing of this message, you are allowed to feel the full size of this, not the managed and proportionate size that keeps the response safely within the range of what is considered appropriate or measured or mature for someone receiving good news or a recognition or the arrival of something that was meant to be. The full size of it, whatever that full size is, in your specific experience of what is arriving and what it means for you specifically in the context of everything you have been through to get here. Let the celebration be as large as what produced it deserves, which is, based on what I see in this reading, quite large and fully earned and overdue in the specific way that things are overdue when they were always coming, but took the time they needed to take to arrive in the form they needed to arrive in for someone who was ready to receive them fully rather than in the partial form. That would have been the only form available. Before you were ready, in the complete way you are ready now. But as the genuine receiving of something real, that was always going to arrive. When you were ready for it, you are ready. And the crown, the sovereignty over your own life and story, that is arriving with what is meant to be, has been waiting for exactly this version of you to wear it Um, wear it without apology, without the managed version of someone who is not yet certain that the crown belongs to them. It belongs to you. It was always going to belong to you. When you arrived here, which is now, get ready, celebrate. It is meant to be, and it is yours.